Welcome back to the Prometheus Podcast. Luke here, and I'm joined with Arlie and Hendry. It's been quite a minute since the last time we all caught up. First of all, how are you going today?
It's going pretty good. Pretty tired, but as always.
We're
going pretty well.
I swear that would be in every episode.
Yeah, every episode. How about you, Ollie?
Yeah, pretty much the same. As you said, Luke, it's been a minute since we last recorded, but a lot has changed, and at the same time, not much has changed. But yeah, the weather's changed. That's all I know.
That's so true. Went from nice sun to just straight clouds.
Yeah. I feel like this table has actually been around the world since last time we did catch up.
Yeah.
Hendry, do you want to kick us off then with where your movements have been?
Where I've been?
Yeah, the last month even.
Yeah. So I went around America for my 21st. So I went to LA, went to San Fran, Vegas, and I went Hawaii as well. That was an awesome trip. Definitely one for the books.
Yeah. What was your favourite out of all of them?
Hawaii. Yeah, definitely. I just love like the mountains and all the treks and the waterfalls and all that we did. We've also done interstate traveling, just gone up to Sydney, just to little meditation kind of like session kind of thing. Yeah. So that's about where I've been.
All over. How about yourself, Harley?
So when are we counting from?
Since the last podcast, right?
About a month.
A month and a bit, yeah.
We did some extra recording, but...
Yeah. Well, me and you, Luke, we went to Jamaica for a bit of a personal development / business development conference, and I'll probably let you dive deeper into that one. But aside from that, I'm not as worldly as you, Henry. I haven't been going to Hawaii and anything like that. But do you want to dive us through the Jamaica trip?
The Jamaica. Yeah, so it was Phenomenal Life Jamaica. So it's part of the ETA group. They do it once a year. So last year they did a cruise. This year was Jamaica. Next year will be Mexico. So it'll be pretty exciting. But yeah, as Ali was saying, what we did, about 7-8 day kind of workshop, everything from business, health, mastering your finances, mastering your mind, just everything like that. So a huge personal development session, and I love those conferences because it's not just the content you get in, it's all the people around you as well. So we met some interesting people, and it was, I guess, your first time being around that kind of atmosphere in that group.
Yeah.
So do you want to run us through how that kind of experience went?
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely memorable because in day-to-day life, it's hard to find people exactly like you trying to do the exact same things, or just similar things, whether it is entrepreneurial or business or just trying to develop who they are, figure out who they are, and especially young people. And it was great to see, whilst there was a lot of, I guess, people older than us, and me and you, Luke, were probably the youngest ones there easily, but there's other guys there in their early to mid-20s, just trying to figure themselves out, trying to figure out their direction, trying to figure out where they want to take their businesses, things like that. And just, me being at uni or me being at the workplace, you don't get to have those same types of conversations. And those conversations are so valuable because it kind of gives you a bit of comfort that there's other people out there trying to do this as well. And it is difficult because it's not as structured or systematic as the system is. So it's not as systematic as just going through school or going to uni, and that next step, it's not there. In this space, you have to create that next step for yourself, and that's the most daunting and like anxiety-inducing thing, right?
Definitely.
So it was definitely valuable. It's interacting with those mindsets and learning from them as well, but also being able to share your own knowledge.
How did you find it, Luke?
Yeah, as Arlo was saying, and I stated before, I prefer when you are surrounded with all those people. It's that kind of networking that I find you get the most out of it.
Yep.
So I've been rocking with that team for a while. So yeah, for me, it was the most reassuring part was it's not like I walked away with just like my head like blown up or my eyes like widened. So a lot of the information that I learned, although that it was new, it was kind of stuff that I've already filtered down and I guess chewed apart and digested. So for me, it was refreshing to hear a lot of that information and go, all right, well, the path that I'm on and the mindset that I have, it's the right mindset.
Solidifies.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, that was great. So then, like I said, it was mostly just those extra connections that we made while we were out there.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So I guess, just touching on what Ali's saying is like being, like having that comfort of people having the same level then, right? It's like, it's also motivating at the same time, pushes you to work like that next level because you see how others are working at it, and you guys are all trying to chase this next thing. But it's like, I don't know, every time I'm surrounded by like a group like that, it just makes you want to work more. Like you're on a trip in Jamaica, I'm sure you guys are like anxious to like come home and be like, yo, I need to get back to just like work, start putting into work.
Yeah, and that's what everyone was like, and you're exactly right, because you're learning all these like new techniques, or even just like surrounded, like saying, by the people, and it's just like, I want to get out there and start going, which we were doing, obviously, just a bit of work on Jamaican Beach, which was nice. It was good weather all around, but I'm sure you did the exact same when you were traveling the States.
When I was traveling the States, it was like a birthday trip. It was like I was there to celebrate my birthday, but like the whole time, like we'll go out during the day, we'd explore, but then I go home and I'm up to like 3 a.m. like just answering emails or like doing something, and then up again like 8 or 9 just to keep going, make the most of my time.
That's a minute, 1 hour of sleep, very nice.
Yeah.
There's a thing about that then. So I'm hearing you two talk about that experience. So I wouldn't mind diving into just that mentality around it, right? Because for us, and I think maybe CJ brought it up on that trip, and it was the fact that everyone's kind of traveled to Jamaica. So everyone took that investment, took that risk to actually go to another country. Everyone needed to get their passports, everyone needed to do their thing, to be in that one place to learn or to try and grow. And it's huge, right? Because the difference between having that mentality to do it versus taking more of the cautious route, it's just that it's a huge gap. It's not as simple as you can just like flick a light switch. So I wouldn't mind trying to get your thoughts around the mentality of taking that risk, or that mentality of kind of going all in. Like for you, 21st, or why not? We'll just go to these different states and we'll go to Hawaii and I'll celebrate my 21st. Even just that action, right?
Yeah.
That takes a lot to do with your mentality, because a lot of people like the safety route, a lot of people like the safety net, or that is plan A, so to speak, but plan B is just, I'll have a 21st at home and maybe rent out a local hall.
Yeah.
But it's so different going to another country to just go all out and make the most of that time. So I wouldn't mind seeing what your thoughts are with kind of the mentality of doing something like that, as you both just went to different countries the last month to just do something that is completely left park of anything that everyone does. So I wonder what your thoughts are around that first, and we'll see if we can just kind of unpack it as a team.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. So the reason, I don't know, it's weird how I decided on going to America. It's so weird. So I was sitting on a train on the way to work, and I was like, oh man, my 21st is approaching. So around this time, I think I had like 4 months to my 21st, and I'm like you said, I could do like that whole like throw a party at like a hall for it at home. But I was like, I love traveling. I love diving into a whole new country. I love exploring. And I was like, where can I go on the map that's like not too bad and somewhere that I haven't been? So I was going through like Skyscanner. Yeah. And I saw America, like just to go to LA, it was only like, a couple $100 or so. I was like, all right, well done. I just said, yeah, I'd celebrate my 21st in America. I didn't care who was coming. I was like, whoever wants to come, comes. Other than that, I'm just going to go and just do something different. I didn't want to really be in the social norm or something. Yeah.
And you got a couple of people to go with you, didn't you?
Yeah, I got 2 mates to come. Yeah.
All right, so I guess on that action then, so it's something that you wanted to do and you love doing, like you said, traveling. But still, it's huge to just click it. Why not? in the States. So do you have anything to unpack with that? And if not, Ali, are you listening to that? Are you figuring something out, that a way to unpack it?
So I don't know, the way I see it is, at the same time, like I do go on trips a fair bit, and sometimes it's to celebrate this, a business there or something like that. But I always see it as an investment in a sense because it's an investment in myself. I learn new things going traveling. I love photography as well. So it's an investment in my photography skills because it challenges me to go and take photos.
Yeah.
And it's like just being uncomfortable in a different country is just good to me in a sense. It's not the same environment. It's completely different to home. And being uncomfortable is the best way to be it. Finding comfort in uncomfort.
Yeah. How about yourself, Ali? Mentality wise and
well, as someone who's traditionally been pretty risk averse, coming from migrant family, moving to Australia from Pakistan, risk wasn't in the vocabulary. It was just play it safe because this is how you find stability and raise a family. And that worked for my parents, and they had to do that because they had 2 kids and they came with nothing and they had to find something, right? But for me now that I do have that solid foundation going forward, I think I've always, that fear of risk has been something that's always held me back. And I think one of the major takeaways from the actual trip that me and you took to Jamaica was in one of the workshops, Eric Tomics was saying that, well, you need to learn how to be reckless. And that was such a big learning for me because, what he meant by reckless wasn't be stupid or just lash out and do like dumb stuff. It meant that, well, if you're already a well-adjusted individual and you're smart, you have a clear definition of what is a good move and what's a bad move, and you already have like you're already calibrated correctly in that way, well then being reckless isn't completely blowing the world up. It's being reckless to you. For if you are normal and you do have a healthy risk averseness, then when you're being reckless, you're just stepping even just 1 point to the side or 2 steps to the side away from what you would think is normal. But since it is out of your comfort zone, you're interpreting it as this insane decision you're making. But in reality, it's just a very small risk you're taking, and there's not much at stake anyway. They spoke about in one of the workshops, well, if you have the same process, you have the same result. So if you're risk averse and you're doing what everyone else is doing, then you're just going to get the exact same result. So if you're living your life completely in the lanes in which you feel comfortable, then, well, if you look around you and you look at the people around you, you're going to end up with that exact same lifestyle, that exact same mentality, that exact same everything, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to escape that and be different, if you want to, pursue success or maybe, become the 1% or anything like that, you have to have a different process so that the result changes as well. But if everybody's risk averse, or then you follow that through to its logical conclusion, and where does it take you? It takes you to where everyone else is because they're doing the same thing. So if you are willing to take on a bit of risk, change your mindset a bit, and you're a healthy individual, you know that you have a healthy sense of what risk even is. So when you are being reckless, by taking 1 step out into the darkness, you already elevated yourself a million miles because no one else is going to even try to follow you, right?
Yeah. And I think that's it. So as what you're saying, as E.T. described it as what you took away. So we take that idea of being reckless. That's again exactly what you did, Hendry. It was reckless to just send it to the States and celebrate your 21st. So I guess if we take that philosophy, because that's probably what I was talking about, where it's a mentality of doing it differently, or the mentality of sticking to a plan A maybe and just following through with that, and maybe not relying so much on safety nets. So because I have an interesting view on it, so I've always, if I make a plan, I always make it plan A and I stick to plan A. And what I do is I would set contingency plans up because plan A might not always be the final product, but to me it's still plan A. It's just maybe plan A.1, and it's just adjust and you adapt and you find a new strategy to kind of make it work. And you can argue this or challenge this idea, but for me, and that's just, again, for me, it might be different for everyone else, but sticking to that plan A and making it work, I just see personally so much more results out of that, because too many people split their focus. And it's that classic saying where if you're chasing 2 rabbits, you won't catch any of them. So if you zero in though, if you focus on one target, then you have more of a chance to hit it, because that's where all your energy and your focus is actually going. And I've always implemented that in my plans, and that is deemed being reckless, because a lot of people would have, if my uni doesn't work out, I'll have this backup, and if that doesn't work out, that's fine, because I can always go work for my parents. And it just allows, I think, just that safety net, which allows them to maybe not perform at their peak, because they go, you know what, it doesn't matter in the end, because I have a backup plan, I have a safety net. So I wouldn't mind seeing what you think with that kind of way of thinking.
Yeah, I definitely do see what you mean by like people saying like, they say the whole like, you know, if this doesn't work out, I've got that. And like, sure you do, but like the way I see it is, you focus on point A, because hone your skills at this one thing that you want to reach, like this one target that you want to reach. Because, you know, if you split your focus into multiple tasks, then you're not putting 100% into everything. But at the same time, I feel like you should have like a safety net, but block it off from your head. You know, like just like tunnel vision in a sense, to focus on point A, but you know, not thinking about you having a safety net. Because like the way I see it is, you should be reckless in life. But at the same time, I feel like you should also have, you know, some sort of barrier. But
No, I'm hearing what you're saying. So I want to have that conversation around what we think is ideal, or if 3 of us have 3 different kind of perspectives on it. So with what we're talking about, Ali, how does that fit with your life, or what do you think about it all?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree, and I think we are so scared of failure, right? So none of us want to fail. So we do create those plan Bs and Cs in such a way that, well, no matter what we do, we won't ever truly fail, because if plan A even begins to not look, you know, attractive anymore, it's suddenly switched to plan B. Plan B suddenly isn't looking, you know, as premium as it could. So it's all right, well, this is plan C. And then since you are just changing lanes all the time, you can kind of create a story in your head that you're not really ever failing. You're just kind of always swerving to the next bit. And in some ways that's smart, and in some ways that's destructive. It's smart because, yes, as you were saying, Hendry, you have those backup plans, so you can just move to the side where the grass is greener and go there. But then if you're not actually maintaining either, you know, if you want to take that metaphor further, if you're not maintaining the grass on either side, then they're both going to slowly start to decay and become yellow and gross, right? So one of the learnings I took away from Phil Knight's memoir, it's called Shoe Dog, right? And then Phil Knight, for those who don't know, he basically created Nike. So one of his sayings that he had for his company when it was starting out, he said, fail fast. And what fail fast means is that, well, you commit to one thing, you fail at, and if you need to fail, just fail, but just don't prolong it, or just as you're bleeding out, switch into another lane and try to do something else. Just bleed out, like just commit, fail, and then that's the easiest way to start learning, right? Because there's a difference between intellectually understanding something and actually having wisdom. Because you can have an intellectual understanding of things you've never experienced. I can intellectually think about what it might be like to give birth to a child, but I just I'll never know what that's like, right? So I'll never truly know that pain. But unless you've actually experienced that pain is wisdom. So the things you've actually experienced, those are the only things you can ever be wise in. You can be smart about a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of smart people, you know, working in unis and being professors and lawyers and bankers and stuff. But how many of those people are actually rich? How many people are actually wealthy or successful in their life? Well, it's because a lot of them just did that thing where they were swerving side to side, avoiding failures, and then they never failed fast. They might have failed slow at times, but where were the learnings? Where was the wisdom?
Cool. Let's cut it off. We're done.
All right. Let's call it right there.
So that's so deep. So I think, so keep that same idea and philosophy with it, Ali. So I have my perspective with it, and that's just throwing me completely off. You just, I feel wise already. So you got, so if I dive into like another section of it, right, and keep the same kind of ideas that you have about it. So when I'm thinking of your plan A's and your plan B's, there's a military strategy that I think about, because I mean I do like to read Sun Tzu, Art of War, and these other military strategists, because I think there's a lot of strategy in life and business, and I think a big part on why young people feel like they don't go anywhere is they don't put any strategy in place. They just take every day as it comes. They just wake up and see what life throws at them. So I'm real big on strategy and being a strategist. So I always see like plans, right? And I'm all about plans. I like making a plan. I like executing it. It's like a strength of mine, and it's something that I enjoy doing. So, and again, I just try to focus on plan A. And yeah, there's contingency plans for it, but I try not to focus on plan B. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I probably would say I don't have a plan B. I do agree with what you say, how you should have a safety net. I think for my safety net is just contingency plans of plan A.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a strategy. It's called, it's a bit full on, but it's called death ground, right? So that it happens when a strategist, if they're aligning their kind of troops or soldiers or whatever you want to call it, but what happens is it's death ground when you put them up against a wall, or you put them up against a cliff, or you give them no option out. And there's plenty of people in history where they've done this. Say they've tried to invade a land, or they tried to invade an empire, and what they do is they actually either burn their boats, they dismantle their way back home, so then there's not split focus. Mm-hmm. So really the only option is, if you want to go back home, you have to conquer this land. If you want to go back home, you have to win this war. If you want to go back home, you must complete this objective. Yep. And what that does, that's death ground, right? Because there's no way out. Your back is against the wall. The only way out is through. So you have to actually push forward, and your focus has to be 100% on the objective ahead. And then that way you're not split focus, and that way you can actually give it, as you said, 100%, because you can never fight for your life if there's a way out. Mm-hmm. Like, you will never be able to squeeze life to its fullest potential if you can always just go, but it's all right because my family owns a butcher's place and I can just go work there if my uni doesn't work out. Because then an individual, especially young people, they're sitting there and they're at school and they're going to be studying, but then they don't mind. They can go to that party, they can go to that movie, or they can just not really attend every single lecture because they understand, well, it's all right because Hendry's my friend and he has this business that he's running, so he's always said I could work there. And my dad's a butcher, so I can always go work with him. They're not actually back against the wall, life or death, just I need to get through this, and this is my only way back home, or my only way back to peace. I actually have to get through what is in front of me. So I always implement that death ground strategy in my life, and that always makes me kind of push myself, because I try to not see backup plans. I don't try to see plan B, so to speak. I just want to be focused on what's in front of me. Mm-hmm. So that's just how I operate. I don't know if there's any.
It's very interesting how you like related it to like a whole military plan. And when you like kind of like talk about it, kind of like makes sense. And it's like, but I think for others, I think people just lack motivation. People lack, like the interest, like staying interested in one thing for so long that they just kind of lean onto that second part. They can't just like shut off that, like, let's just say there's no backup plan. They can't just shut that off. I've had multiple friends. It's like, like I just, can you tell me how you started your business or something? And I'm like, no worries. I run you through it, give you the basics. They'll do like the same thing, but they won't stick it through. They'll go for like 5-10 days, maybe a month, and they're like, all right, business shut, because they're like, oh wait, I don't see the growth in this. I'm gonna just slip out of this plan and I'm gonna jump to the next one. And no one wants to risk anything in life because they're scared to fail. And if you can change your mentality to accept failure, then I feel like you're in a pretty good spot. And it's crazy to me that like people can't focus on one thing at all.
And why do we think that is?
Well, it's just the technology, right? Like it's just
Our human attention span.
It's just scrolling, right? It's just moving on to the next thing immediately. It's the 100 forms of entertainment we have at any given moment. It's not, when was the last time, the majority of young people out there read a book, read a whole page straight, or just read a whole chapter straight?
Yeah.
Or when was the last time anybody, even myself, when was the last time I read for an hour straight? Because I read a lot. I read a lot of books, but an hour straight without checking my phone, probably never. Because I'll read a few pages, someone will message me, I'll message back, and this constant flipping and switching between things, it's just hardwired us to constantly switch tasks. That was once seen as a skill set, right? It's like, I'm good at multitasking, I'm good at doing 100 things at once, but now we're terrible at doing one thing. And you can't even effectively multitask, right? I mean, they kind of showed that was a myth.
Really
like, you're not really multitasking, you're just doing one thing and then switching to another thing.
Like 20%.
Yeah, so rather than, and then that's what that flow state is, right? So no one's really getting into that flow state. No one's actually unlocking the full potential of their mind and applying themselves in whatever they might be doing, whether that's writing an assignment, trying to do your work, even, in your workplace, whatever it might be. Because, even that's what fascinates me is there's this thing about phantom notifications. So I think it might even be like an actual diagnosis now, but people start feeling phantom vibrations in their pocket, and they'll reach for their phone and there's no notification, and they'll put it back, or you'll just hear like a frequency in your ear that kind of mimics, a buzz or a notification. It might just be like a car driving past, but then you just go for your phone and be like, oh, okay, there's nothing there. And that's the most basic form of conditioning, right? Like you can do that to dogs. That's what you do with dogs when you teach them how to roll over or sit down and you give them that biscuit. It's, well, now every time you get that buzz, you get that command to roll over for your phone, and you roll over, you grab it, and then there's nothing there. There's something there, but you're not even in control anymore. You're not in control. So, I mean, none of us are, I guess, at this point. That's not to say that you can't improve or get better.
So you're thinking, and I agree 100%. So it's just that society that we live in now, with the rise of technology, and our phone's always been in our pocket, and I'm sure there's other things that add to it, but we're just, how do you say it, 100 forms of entertainment. You just switch between, your focus is that split. So what's then the action or the process to take if someone is suffering from that? If we're thinking, plan A, plan B's and this and that, but if we're truly trying to get to the core of that, and it's just people's inability to actually stay focused, is it a one real kind of core principle, or is it a combination of, they need to actually, you mentioned it, Andrew, when you're talking about people's interests and all of that, which I think is huge, because a lot of people, obviously, if you're not doing what you are interested in, then no matter how hard you focus in on it, you're never going to want to actually catch the rabbit, because it just doesn't interest you. So you might even be chasing two, but you're not even if you're chasing one, you won't catch it anyway, because it's not really aligned with what you even want in the first place.
Oof. Yeah, well, there's so many ways in which that mentality, because now I'm thinking about it, it just pops up everywhere. Because what is FOMO? What is fear of missing out?
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to commit to one plan with a mate, because you're gonna tell them, I'll let you know, and you know full well your calendar's free. You know full well that the whole month is free. Like, you can meet up with your friend tomorrow if you wanted to, but your mate's done the right thing. They've reached out to you and they've said, I'm thinking of having a thing on the weekend. Can you come? And you say, I'll let you know later. And then you wait for some other plan to come through, and then that's what planned shopping is, because you start shopping for other things to do that might just seem better, and you don't commit to anything, right? Because we fear committing to things, because we don't want to tell Greg that we can come to his bar mitzvah if the day before, on the same day, something that sounds a bit more interesting or something that sounds a bit more enticing comes up, and you want to do that instead, and you don't want to go through the trouble of and even now, like I feel like people are pretty shameless now, and that now people just be like, oh, you know what, something else came up, like I can't make it, and it's the same exact same mentality, right? Because it's whether that's multitasking, whether that's not committing to a plan in life or actually doing anything like that, it's all, well, we have so many options now and so many ways to move forward that a lot of time we'll just move sideways instead of actually going forward.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's crazy. I think people just want to do, what's best for them. They're like, oh, this plan's better. Like, oh, like you said, plan shopping for the weekend. Your mates like invited you to a barbecue, but then your other mates like, yo, come to this like club event, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just go to the club because that that suits you better in a sense. So I think that people just do things that interest like them. So we're all working, we do our work, but then a notification comes in and we're like, all right, yeah, because that interests us more than work. And it's the same thing again. Like if you're with all of us, we're all trying to chase a different that 1% dream, or that different dream where where we want to separate ourselves from being part of that kind of like same risk. What was that word again that you were talking about before, where everyone's kind of like on that same kind of
just like system that risk.
Yeah, same system. Yeah. Everyone's on. And it's people like. They don't want to do that because it doesn't suit them. It's not fun. It's not interesting to them. So they're not going to all in on that. And they're going to be like, "I'll try it out. Oh wait, it doesn't really interest me. I'll jump there. I'll jump there."
Yeah. And is that just? And you see it so much with the young people. What I'm hearing with that one is there's not a skill set with commitment, especially in our generation. And heading down, and you see that everywhere because it fits into what you're saying, where people try a job, doesn't suit their interests, they leave, and that's time and time again. And you see it, and so many young people go through so many relationships, right? Because it's the exact same story.
I was just thinking that.
Exactly. So, and commitment, and I'll quote Inky Johnson, and he describes it really well. He says, "Commitment is staying true to something." That you said you were going to do long after the feeling has left. And that is huge. And I think commitment is such an amazing quality to have, and it's sadly so rare, right? Because even like, let's take dating at kind of this age and going down, right? It's just, for one, dating doesn't exist. It's just kind of, you meet a person, you message in them, then you're in a relationship. Whereas dating used to be like you'd go on dates to see if you were kind of compatible with each other, and then if you'd go on dates, and then you would go, you know what, I know kind of what I like about you, I know what I dislike about you, but let's have a commitment and let's try to see this through. It doesn't work like that. It's I meet you, Henry, and we're texting.
No man, I just swiped right.
That's what it is. It's just that swipe. It's that texting. Maybe meet up once, texting in a relationship, and then this is what happens 9 months down the track, where you'll then see something else that is shiny and new that piques your interest, and all of a sudden there was never any commitment in the first place, and that's where people go through so many relationships. And
relationships are so weird in this world, especially at uni, just being surrounded by so many young people. Like I mean, you guys are big boys, you're out in the world, like living your
corporate
lives, but like on a daily basis at uni, like I'll just look and I'll be able to observe, at least 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 like young people just walking around me at any given point, right? Or throughout the day, and getting to know people, or just hearing people talking around me, it's so weird, like how what it means to be in a relationship has just changed, because you hear people, there'll be two girls sitting on the bench across from me while I'm eating my lunch, and then they'll be talking about how one of them's thinking about breaking up with their boyfriend, and another girl will be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, like what went wrong?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing went wrong, I just want to go and exchange for 6 months in a couple of months from now, and I don't want to be tied down. I want to experience, I might want to get around, like experience some other people while I'm away, and then I don't want to limit myself like that." And I hear that type of like discussion and all that type of dialogue. And like, yeah, fair enough. Like everybody's entitled to do what they want, but is that really the reason why you're gonna throw it away? I mean, people are simple, right? Like if you're with somebody and you fall in love with them, then you're not faking that emotion. Like that's real. And there's something there that's true. But then we've created this whole narrative about it where everything is disposable and everything can be recovered at any given moment. Because yes, you might lose the love of your life one day, but then let's find another one the next. You know, let's go to Tinder, let's go to Bumble, let's go to you know, there's a thriving industry now. You know, it's a industry because it's the same thing. It's that fear of missing out. It's that inability to commit. It's that short attention span. It's the millisecond this becomes boring, the millisecond that this becomes a little bit of friction, a little bit uninteresting, it's see ya, on to the next thing. Because, and isn't that so destructive to your character? Because if we're saying failing fast gives you wisdom and gives you actual real knowledge about life and experience, and if nobody is failing at anything, because yes, like they might have failed in their relationship by just throwing it away, but they didn't actually go through the process of truly failing. Like they didn't actually go through the legitimate heartbreak and suffering that occurs when you have difficulty with someone that you care about. And if all it was just a little, you know, escape pod that you could just eject and then just move on to the next thing, and that process didn't feel like an amputation. It just felt like you just moved on effortlessly onto the next thing. If it didn't truly damage you in some way, well, like what were you doing? Like you had one foot in, you had one foot out. You're not standing anywhere. And I just think that's such a bad thing that's happening right now. Like it's just like I'm at a loss for words to actually quantify it or describe it in any meaningful way. And I'm sure this sounds like I've just gone on some random rant.
No, you're fine. Cut the podcast there. That was fine.
But it's the same thing. It's this pattern recognition. It's the same loop of behavior, and we just apply it in different aspects of our lives, whether it's relationships, whether it's in business, whether it's in understanding our future career prospects, whether it's what we're doing moment to moment, whether that's what, you know, trying to apply ourselves or read or work or do anything. It's this complete inability to see things through or actually engage with anything properly. It's not even about commitment at this point. It's about even just showing up on time and actually wanting to explore it, to actually see if there's any depth there. And it's just such a shame because, you know, I think our parents and our parents' had a deeper insight into this. They knew what it was like to see something through. They knew what it was like to actually, you know, experience something fully, and the richness and the deep wisdom or knowledge that you can extract from something when you engage with it authentically. I think no one in our generation knows what that's like.
People just don't want to see things through. People just, you know, rather leave early instead of, you know, hitting or just not committing to anything because they're like, oh, you know, just move on to another thing.
But do you think there's like a level of selfishness there though? Like, is this like, are people becoming? Is it not even just our attention spans are getting lower? Are people just becoming more selfish? Like, because if we're interpreting people as just being dispensable, whether it's relationships, your friends, your plans, if everything is just revolving around you now, and you are, you know, the person with the divine power to just shape your life and do whatever you want. Is that, because yes, the hard wiring is harder to get around. Like we're going to have to work at that for years and years to actually retrain yourself to actually not behave in that way. But selfishness is something you can rectify immediately. So that's the change people can make today. So is selfishness, like I'm asking you guys, is selfishness...
So I got something with that. I would have just cut the podcast right there before. So I had an interesting scenario where I had an opportunity to, I guess, transition out of the job that I was doing, get a new job. It was something that I'd worked for probably 3 years.
Yeah, it's been ages since you finished school.
Yeah, exactly. So I always wanted to get into this certain field. I had the opportunity. It was a pay rise, so more money, less hours. It was just everything. It was a perfect ideal scenario that, I wanted I wanted and I worked for. So I had that right in front of me, and I was like, oh, sweet. Well, anyone would really make that decision, right? But then it meant I had to leave kind of the ship that I was on, and that was a ship that I built from day dot. I was the first person who worked there, and then we expanded and we ended up with 150 or so people. It was a project I seen start to finish, and it was just finishing, right? So everyone had to get managed out of the, everyone was pretty much being made redundant. So everyone was in that difficult period. And I don't know if anyone's been through like a redundancy when everyone's losing their job, but it's such an interesting period because everyone's true colors show. And you start seeing everyone, and it's that selfish nature, right? And you start seeing that everywhere. And I was just looking at that, and for one, I was committed to what I had done, and I didn't. For me, the captain doesn't abandon his ship; he goes down with it. He either gets everyone off the ship, or he dies trying. So I was conflicted between that and going for the job that I had worked for pretty much years and years and many hours. Like between, although it was 3 years, I probably worked 5 years. Let's be real, the amount of hours I put in. So it was so interesting. So I had to really like reflect and just figure out what I wanted. And then I started seeing how everyone's losing their minds because they've either put all in onto one option, which was this job that they knew was ending anyway, but all of a sudden they're running around with their heads cut off. And then you start seeing people start snaking other people and trying to elevate themselves because they want to be the last people, right? Let's say there was 10 people left out of the 150. You can imagine it. Everyone's out there stabbing everyone in the back.
Hunger Games.
Insane. And like, we're not just talking staff, you're talking management, like you're talking everything. It was in shambles. So then for one, I couldn't leave because since I was there from day one, I was just like, well, I'm one of the ones that I can kind of help make sure, although it's burning, it doesn't burn as intense or doesn't hurt as many people. And I trained a lot of stuff, so there was a lot of people that relied on me to kind of guide them, even if they were exiting out, to just help them kind of get their next job and all of that. So it was like, well, what option do you take? And I always thought about it, and so many people jump ship, and there's nothing wrong for the people who jump ship, right? Because they use that idea on you got to do what's best for you. And I mean, I agree with that to a sense, right? Because like you can't help anyone if you can't help yourself. Like we all know that philosophy, but then I was thinking about it, and it's like, well, do people just use that as an excuse? And like everyone does it, and everyone just goes, oh, I've got to do what's best for me. So see ya. Like there's 150 people burning, but I'll do what's best for me. So people kept saying that, oh, like do what's best for you. Like, yeah, you should take that job. And I was just like, well, I was just like, I don't know if I want to do that, because why would I abandon what I committed to? Why would I abandon the people that I helped develop? Why would I abandon the ship if I'm the captain of it? So I was like, sure, it might be what's best for me, but I feel like everyone uses that as the scapegoat. Everyone uses that as the excuse to burn everyone and everything to just take care of number one. And I was just thinking about it, and I'm like, well, isn't that the reason why the world is burning right now? Is it not because every single person just looks out for themselves and no one looks after the family, no one looks after the brother, the sister, the friends that back them up? It's just so easy to stab you in the back because it's what's best for me, and I can get an extra $30,000 a year. Sure, I can get full-time commitment and stability in my life, whereas over here there was no stability. Like I stayed in the redundancy knowing that I had no job. I was actually first to leave if I stayed. I was the first person to leave just because of my contract. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to choose what's best for me, because is that not the reason why the world's on fire right now? So I'd rather stay on this side and do what I can and see life out through here, because this might be what's best for me, but it's not what's right for me. And it was interesting because I had to think about it a bit, and I was like, man, this is exactly where so many people just stab people in the back, and so many people just jump ship. Is this really how we live? Is this really what the world is going to be like? So
you like saw that like next opportunity, and then like, because this is already dying out, and you're like, oh, I could just jump. But you were like, no, I'm gonna stay committed to this because I've been here from the start, and you rather see it through. And that's what people like these days. People's just just seeing things through, really. And then I guess the thing that we all have in common is like, like for me, like straight up is, I live life with no regrets. So if there's an opportunity like that and I decline it, so be it. Whether it's an extra, like you said, an extra 30K. An extra 30K when you work it out, by your hours, by your days, by the time you put in, it's not even worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that's the way I see things. I kind of like to break things down into different, how much it takes out of my time, how much it takes out of my life, and decide if it's worth it or not. But most of the time, I'd rather see things through. Whether it's businesses, I know, like I've had businesses where it's just like months and months and months of just straight losses. You know, and everyone's like, "Why are you pouring money in?
Yeah.
Why you keep pouring money in?" I'm
Jump
like,
ship, it's not worth it.
yeah, it's like just close it down already. I'm like, why? I see the bigger picture to it. I see that like eventually, you know, I'll have a turnaround. You know, I've had one where it took 7 months. I think I was pouring like a couple hundred a month into it. I can't remember the total amount. It wasn't like a huge business, but it just kept, you know, bringing in losses every single month. But at that 7 month, when I bought more inventory or I bought different inventory, it started to turn around. You know, people started seeing the business, people started seeing it. You know, like this whole new opportunity gateway opened. And I think the thing for you, I don't know how this is for your work right now, but like since you stuck it through, a whole new opportunity opened in a sense, didn't it? Like you saw, whether it's like a new job or anything, but you saw like a whole different, like
as we're in personal development as well, it just helped. Since it was the flames there, it was just helped being there. Again, seeing people, how they reacted, managing it through the workplace, gaining all that, as you said, wisdom. As I went through it, I'd rather be over there because this is uncomfortable. As you said, this is where the fire is because that's the only way steel's made. So I learned a lot, and I wouldn't trade that for stability. I wouldn't trade that for money. I wouldn't do anything.
It's not worth it.
Like that.
That wisdom you gained from sticking it through, it's a lot more better than just taking another job.
Yeah. So that was my direct kind of take on what you were talking about.
Yeah. So it's almost a character thing at this point. Yeah. It's not about, you know, the individual actions or the way you go about thinking about things. It's almost something more fundamental that needs to shift. It's more how you even conceptualizing the role that other people have in your life, the role that opportunities and things like this have in your life. Because if we are saying that, you know, the world revolves around us and that, you know, once I feel ready to do something, I'll do it. But then I know that you're a big believer in, well, armoring yourself up before because like the world isn't going to wait for you, right? And we might like to think that, you know, opportunities will always be there because we can always just move left or move right. But, you know, if that character isn't actually developed, if you're not actually investing in yourself and trying to break free of that, you know, that destructive mindset where you are just thinking that everything is disposable. What happens when you become that person that starts to become disposable, you know? Like what happens when the person that you know that you thought loved you decides that, oh, I don't want you anymore? What happens when, you know, your friends cancel on your 21st birthday? What happens when, you know, all these things that happen to you? Well, you become the receiver of everything that you were just doing, right? Yeah. And in a way, there's a justice in that because then everybody's equal. But if everybody's equal, everyone's burning each other. Well, like that's it. We're all just burning each other. No one's helping each other out. So if we all did just shift that mindset, if we did actually change our character, the nature of who we are, and stop seeing things as disposable, but actually try to take care of them, then, well, you plant those seeds, you nurture it. These things become investments, they become long-term commitments. And yes, at times commitments can be uncomfortable because you're putting yourself all in, you're not splitting yourself between option A, B, and C. But because you are committing yourself, you're actually realizing your full potential, because as you're saying, if you're backed into that corner, well, like a wild animal is most dangerous when it's backed into a corner. You don't want to do that because then they're going to go from being this timid thing to finally, you know, the fur standing on its back and it's going to come attack you, because evolutionarily that's been programmed to, well, this is the last stand. This is my final stand. If I don't fight now, it doesn't matter that I'm a fox and I'm fighting a bear. This is the last stand. So it's now or never. So let's make it happen. And I'm sure you can relate, Luke. Well, when you're in that, you don't feel more alive than that, because that's it. Like your back's against the wall. There's no other options. And then it's like you go into your flow state. You go into like some enlightenment state, and it's just bang, like every neuron in your brain is just focused towards making this one thing happen. It's survival, it's achieving your dream, because there is no way out. There is no false wall behind you where you can just open the door, switch out, and then bang, you're in a new reality, right? And that character switch, I think, is just the number one thing that people need to focus on, because if we can do that, well then it's bigger. It's saving the planet. It's saving everything. Because if we're treating the planet the same way, the planet's disposable too, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not. Like, we haven't found another one yet. So, like it's the exact same thing. So, I'm just seeing right now, just in this conversation, that the patterns are everywhere, and it's the same pattern repeated in 100 different ways, in 100 different fields, and 100 different manifestations of the exact same thing. But it's the exact same thing that's coming up. It's this disregard, it's this selfishness, it's this lack of commitment, it's this flakiness, this flaky attitude towards life, essentially.
Get out there and break the pattern.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to the Prometheus Podcast, where we aim to bring the fire back to the people.